At a major Hollywood studio, in a corner office of Sub-Basement D, the development executives toil in obscurity to reboot it. Welcome back, not to the corner office, but to the Reboot It Skype edition, because we are quarantined for the coronavirus, baby. No rest for the weary. John Peters has got us cranking because, as you know, when production shuts down in Hollywood, development goes into overdrive. So we are here on our video conference, and we are bringing you Season 2. Welcome back. First person to introduce, as usual, you know him from Hot Takes with Billy Business, a senior producer at Screen Junkies. Billy Business.
Yeah, I must have gotten locked in the merch closet here, but happy to be back. Season 2, Green Lantern. It'll be fun to talk about something that's not a virus today.
Absolutely. So, Billy, who is your favorite of all the many Green Lanterns we have seen throughout the years?
I think Kyle is my favorite just because that was the first one. If you're a 90s kid, Kyle was the Lantern when you grew up. So I think I like his style. I kind of like how he uses the ring differently. So I'm going to say Kyle.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I'm a huge Kyle fan. I just don't know how popular that character has really been after the 90s. So let's find out who the favorite Green Lantern is of one half of the Nerd Goat podcast. You know him from Screen Junkies Universe and the upcoming, just announced Superman versus the Ku Klux Klan, Ed Greer.
Hey, guys. It's an honor to be here in my house away from all the disease. It's an honor.
Ed, favorite Green Lantern, if you have one?
I don't think I have one. Abin Sur.
Nice.
Because he got out of this franchise quickly. No, I don't know. I would be typical and say Jon Stewart, but I gotta say a lot of people like myself are kind of raised on Jon Stewart from like the cartoons and stuff. And I do like his architectural approach to the Green Lantern powers. He really seems to try to make things in his mind down to the detail, down to the screw. Like he makes guns and armaments and stuff. So it's like, to me, he's the most like, it shows me that the powers are about your mind. You know, him and Kyle are the ones that show me that the power is about your mind, your particular mind.
I like that. All right. And the other half of the Nerd Goat podcast, you know him from Comic-Cons across the country, and you hear him every week on the Nerd Goat podcast, Mr. Ron Swallow.
Hello. Man, you guys, I keep scratching my nose. I'm so glad I'm by myself so no one can shake my hand.
As he wipes his face. Stop, Ron. Stop. We're watching.
Don't worry. I'm not leaving my house. It's fine.
You went to Book of Mormon, Ron. You went to Book of Mormon a day before the quarantine happened. You had an outbreak monkey.
Literally the next day, they were like, Book of Mormon is closed down. I was like, oh, great. Thanks. You couldn't have done that a day earlier, guys?
Oh, man.
Ron, tell me, who is your favorite Green Lantern, if you have one?
I go Kyle Rayner. I also like Jon Stewart as well, so I'm kind of in the Ed Greer mode. I like creativity from Kyle Rayner, and just like Ed said, I like the I mean, Jon Stewart's creative too, but it's more like it's like such a format to everything he builds, you know. And it goes well with what I have in mind, but I'm not going to be sticky about this, guys, but I have an idea for stuff, and I'm pretty excited to talk about this because it's one of my favorite characters.
Well, very cool. So just to give our audience a quick rundown, if you have no idea what these names mean that we're talking about, the Green Lantern was created in 1941. This character is one of the oldest superheroes, but not the version that most people know. This is one of those crazy DC Golden versus Silver Age deals. So originally, the Green Lantern was train engineer Alan Scott, who got into a crash and randomly found a magic lantern that he turned into a ring. So great Golden Age origin story. In the Silver Age, that was retconned into ace fighter pilot Hal Jordan. And so Hal Jordan is the Green Lantern most people know. He was the Green Lantern featured in the Super Friends and was the Green Lantern all the way up until the 1990s when he went crazy, tried to destroy the universe, and a young comic book artist named Kyle Rayner was appointed Green Lantern. Now, over the years, there have been many other Green Lanterns. One is Jon Stewart, who was the backup Green Lantern of Earth, who was an architect, and then later went on to star in the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoons. And then there's also basically Boston jerk Guy Gardner.
Guy Gardner.
who nobody likes.
Bowl cut Gardner.
I think he makes for good comedy, though.
Oh yeah, it does make for good comedy. And so the history of Green Lantern in Hollywood is a weird one. Obviously, the Ryan Reynolds version that got made was actually pretty faithful to what they did in the comics, and it was a huge bomb. He was playing Hal Jordan. But over the years, there have been a lot of weird versions. For a while, Jack Black was going to play Green Lantern in a full-on comedy version of this. And now they're talking about doing a Green Lantern Corps movie, which I guess would be an ensemble with all these different Green Lanterns functioning as space cops. But it's a little bit unclear what the future of the Green Lantern holds. And I will say this, last thing on the big breakdown. For being one of DC's big five characters, he is very under-adapted. Has never had really, I mean, I think they did one half season of an animated show that bombed, has had the one movie that bombed, otherwise really haven't gone to that well over the years. So
yeah, there's a couple animated features
that's
that are
true.
really good.
That's true. DC does those animated movies.
But other than that, you're right. Nothing's really come through for people, I would say.
But which is really weird because DC's so good at animation and movies these days are just animations. You know what I mean? Like this concept that most of the things you see on the screen in an action adventure movie are actually done by any human being or not previs to death 500 years before they actually shoot. It's preposterous. So it should lend itself to them being able to do better movies.
The problem with Green Lantern is that it has such a big setup because, I think that was the big thing. I rewatched the 2011 movie because I was like, where did this go wrong? Because yeah, it was how I remembered a lot of the comics. And it's like the first 2 minutes are like, so yeah, there's a lot of planets. There's these little green men or blue men and they're on a planet called Oa. And then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. So it's very daunting. I feel like, where do you start to put together the pieces of Green Lantern that an audience can understand? Because clearly a 2-minute prologue VO, that ain't it.
Yeah, they tried to do kind of the Lord of the Rings setup in that Green Lantern movie directed by Martin Campbell. And I would agree with you, Billy, especially for a movie that ends up being very grounded and like about one guy and more than half of it takes place on Earth. To give it that big, epic, crazy setup is just kind of incongruous. So let's do this, as we always do. First question, for an audience, what do they need to see, if anything? Because I don't even know how much the general audience knows about Green Lantern. What does a general audience need? We'll start with Ron, because I know you're cranking for this one.
Well, okay. In my opinion, you need to see the story, the real story of Green Lantern, which is getting willpower and believing in yourself is what makes the ring the most powerful, right? So at some point, the journey, I think, has to be these possibly multiple Green Lanterns, but at least one Green Lantern going through a story that brings them to a point that they believe in themselves. So I think there has to be a doubt and some insecurity in the character that you enjoy and relate to. That's what I would be.
That's fair. Before we get into the story mechanics, though, Ron, do you think on an audience level, right? Like, do people bring any preconceived expectations into this? It's like if you say, go ahead.
No.
Okay.
I think but what you need is cool Green Lantern powers, a ring that is dope as you can be, because it looks like a lantern, and then And then some cool battle scenes. I mean, as far as just like what an audience would enjoy in that, I think there's got to be comedy, and then there's got to be cool effects.
Interesting. So last question for you, Ron, in this portion. Do you think there's something to be said for a Green Lantern movie looking or feeling like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie? And does that become tough when you get into trying to differentiate?
Okay. Well, maybe a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but I'm thinking more like a Bad Boys movie.
Oh, interesting. Let's come back
more along.
Let's come back to that. To that. So Ed, what do you think an audience would expect to see, would need to see when a Green Lantern movie?
I mean, unfortunately, what an audience would expect to see is a person of stultifyingly low imagination making boxing gloves and boomerangs and meat mallets and crap with this godlike thing on his hand making goofy crap. You know what I mean? The first movie was rife with that stuff. Like I'll make a Hot Wheels track to stop a helicopter from crashing. Why don't you make a freaking bed or something? Like, what are you doing? It's so weird.
Or a robot that catches it.
Right. I think people are expecting sort of objects that they know to be made out of green light and to grab stuff and punch stuff in the movie. I think they're expecting that. I don't know if I want to give it to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point you're making is we might need to really define the limits of, because in the comics, the ring was always just, as Grant Morrison has put it, a magic wishing ring. It could basically do or be anything, except when it goes up against the color yellow, which maybe is not for this movie either. But it feels like you might need to put some limitations on it.
All right, and like the old one, the guy the train guy, Alan Scott, it was wood.
Yeah.
Wood. The Wicker Man could beat up Green Lantern. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, so Billy, what do you think? What does an audience need to see?
I disagree with you when you say, Bill, that we may not need the yellow, because I think that was something that they desperately wanted in that 2011 movie, and they threw it in so haphazardly that it was kind of gone and didn't mean anything. But what Jeff Johns did, you know, in the mid 2000s and later, was he kind of established that green is just one core. There's also red, which is just all rage. There's, you know, there's all sorts of, like, all the colors mean something on the spectrum. And I think if you're going to go into a Green Lantern movie and you are expecting, honestly, as an audience member, I'm expecting probably the same garbage that we got in 2011. That's the truth, because that's exactly what it is. You can't change. That's why Fantastic Four has such a hard time with new movies, because you can't change the fundamental aspect of what the Fantastic Four are. But what you can do is, and Ron said it, and I don't want to step too much on it, but I don't think people realize that the Green Lantern is not one guy. The Green Lantern is different than anything in DC Comics, because they are a space police force. So I think what this movie, what I want is, I want it like a mystery or a case that needs to be solved by my bad boy Green Lanterns. And you don't have to spend the first half hour of the movie explaining me into things, because that's what the lesson you can take from Guardians of the Galaxy. And they took it from Star Wars: A New Hope. You don't have to spend time. How is this? What is this? Why is this? Just drop me in it and I'll figure out what I need to figure out. And you can leave Easter eggs and breadcrumbs for me to pick up. But I think a space police procedural mystery with supernatural powers of emotional spectrums, you know, a red rage person, his power is fueled by rage while yours is powered by the lack of fear. Like, I think you can do some really cool stuff that the other movie just, they wasted their time on the things that didn't end up mattering.
I think that's a really good point, and I'll just jump in from my point of view. I mean, I kind of agree with all you guys that, like, the audience really isn't going to bring a ton into this other than low expectations. And I feel like one of the problems with the Green Lantern as a concept is that it's really torn between being two different things. It's torn between being like a very conventional superhero story on Earth, about a dude who gets unexpected power and tries to do something good with it versus something that's so weird and so hard to wrap your head around in space that it almost becomes a difficult story to tell because there's such deep lore. There's so many like weird kind of idiosyncratic specifics to it. And I feel like that 2011 movie tried to give you a little bit of both and ended up sort of pleasing nobody. And so maybe for me, you kind of need to pick a lane and run in it. And I think, this gets us into the conversation about what story are we telling? And so maybe let's start, like Billy said, is it just a case in space? What do we think about that?
I have a few ideas. I like this idea of, what immediately jumped into my mind when Billy was talking about, and this has actually changed my mind. I still think it should be basically a dark, well, maybe not dark, but a comedy, a duo of a la Bad Boy style, with the story being that maybe, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but here's the idea. Green Lanterns are being murdered, and the two guys from Earth are sent to go find out what's going on. As simple as that. And then, of course, it gets more and more complicated at that. You find out maybe somebody's trying to collect all the rings to become Parallax.
I think there's something to the idea. There's two cool things in there, right? Number one, the idea of Green Lanterns being murdered gives you an automatic mechanism in the story to explain who the Green Lanterns are and why they're significant. And then number two, if the target is the rings and collecting the rings, again, that gives you a mechanism in the story to sort of unspool the mythology behind the rings, which is cool. My concern would be like, do you think, and this is an honest question, do you think an audience buys in without any sort of setup? Like it's just, say, Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, they've got rings, they're in space, they're the Green Lanterns, go.
I would actually say, we talked about Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think that's the wrong movie to compare. I would actually say Doctor Strange would probably be more in line with how I see it, where you can spend some of the movie explaining this massive world, but there's still an ongoing conflict. And I definitely, when I think of Doctor Strange and Iron Man in Infinity War, and he's like, yeah, you guys are Avengers, but I protect your reality, douchebag. I see Green Lantern saying the same thing to Superman. It's like, yeah, you do everything here on Earth and you're the Man of Steel. We do it everywhere in the universe. So, I think that's maybe your starting point is like, I don't think it's wrong to borrow from movies or things that work. So it's like, can you maybe do the Doctor Strange setup where it's like, part of the movie is becoming the Lantern, but it really is in the midst of, I really like the idea of like, the Lantern slayings.
So maybe it's Kyle Rayner and Jon Stewart is the veteran and Kyle Rayner is sort of the rookie. Coming up. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, like this is my thing. Looking at it, I just wrote down three things. I wrote 48 Hours plus Top Gun plus Doctor Strange. Yeah. That's what I just wrote down. And I think that's an interesting way to look at the alchemy of it, because you got the 48 Hours is about an actual seasoned cop and a person who is kind of benighting themselves a cop to help that cop for his own ends. But over the course of the movie, he becomes almost like a good lawman. You know what I mean? Eddie Murphy by the end of the movie is almost a good lawman. And if our character is almost a good Green Lantern at the end, after having a lot of brashness and a lot of whatever. And I think the Top Gun comes in because obviously the Green Lantern Corps is like Top Gun. There's going to be people there who hate you, who think you suck. There's going to be Icemans and people who are just like, this loser from Earth, he's whack. And I know they tried to do a little bit of that in the Ryan Reynolds movie, but it so fell flat. It was so like two-dimensional bullying. I would like to see some real stuff. And like Billy said, the Doctor Strange engine of you're a newbie to this game. You just learned some of the things, you learned how to spin your hand in a circle. You learned how to do the wax on, wax off, but you have no idea the dark arts that I know. And then Hal Jordan or Kyle Rayner or whatever over the course of the movie becomes a real master of this art by like studying diligently and actually applying themselves instead of just flying at the seat of their pants, which is what they've done their whole lives. Something like that.
Yeah.
Just free balling.
And on top of that, like I said, I love the idea of this guy is kind of insecure and he has to sort of find himself and find out who he really is, which is, with Kyle or maybe even with Hal, it's being more creative. So maybe they start out making those dumb punching fists, and then eventually by the end of the movie, they're making a freaking mech with 47 missiles.
I'll make one last bid and I think we can drop this if this is too much for a first movie, but I do think that there's something interesting about a guy, if the kind of the theme of the movie is about finding yourself and being, who are you in this vast universe, I do think there's something interesting about using and playing with the emotional spectrum of the rings. Why is this brash young kid, why would he want to be a Green Lantern? He can get rage powers and be ultra powerful with a red ring. Is there something to why he chooses to be kind of like the police, the green one, the inspiring one? I don't know. I feel like if we choose to include other colors, which we don't have to, but I feel like you limit yourself later, I feel like that has to be addressed. Like, why does he want to be a Green Lantern?
Okay, well, what do the yellow ones do? Like, because what I was thinking, if indeed yellow, I understand we have to look at the lore and stuff, but the Red Lanterns, I would agree with the Red Lantern if that's somebody that he comes to later that has so much more power than him, our hero, because this person has access to this rage inside them, and the rage powers are like Sith powers. They're easier to do a lot with, so he's overwhelmed physically or whatever. But I think we should try to play into his ring's weakness as well, which is it going to be yellow? I just want to start that conversation.
So it's really going to be fear, which is yellow is the representation of, right?
That's correct. So I've got a couple things I want to bring up. First of all, I mean, I think number one, I have never been a fan of the multicolored spectrum, like the ring spectrum. Which doesn't, we could use it. I'm just saying, I always felt like the ring spectrum didn't make sense. Like it's the most facile metaphor, right? It's like if you can tap into a specific emotion, you get power having to do with that emotion. And I just never felt like that made for an interesting story in anything I read in the comics. And so all I'm saying is I would just like to know what the utility of that is to the story that we're telling.
But I also would like to jump in here with one thing. It is not that I hate the colors, although it is an unconscionable gimmick. Okay, it's not that I hate the colors. My personal opinion, I have always felt as though the cool thing about the Green Lanterns is that they're all using the same tool and they get vastly different results. And they use it but different. They think about it different. When Sinestro was a Green Lantern, he was way different Green Lantern than Kilowog or the planet or whatever. You know what I mean? I'd love for us to maybe try to explore all the different ways this power can be used for good and ill. As people kind of not maybe good or ill, but you know what I'm saying? All the different. I don't know. I just think the different ways Green Lanterns use the Green Lantern has so many facets that we could explore that for the first movie and see if we can get into that other stuff later. That would be my thing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. My question is, we're trying to make a franchise, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, if we're trying to make a franchise, doing the Green Lantern first makes a lot of sense with maybe an introduction. Maybe the bad guy is one thing that maybe they didn't even know about him. I don't know. I'm just throwing that.
Well, so the bad guy gets thrown out of the Green Lantern group at the end and defeated soundly and stuff, but falls into the cave of the ancient whatever the hell and comes upon this glowing red thing and goes, ha ha ha, these fools, they got nothing for me now. And then we cut to black. I mean, that could be as good as anything for right now.
That's literally how the 2011 Green Lantern movie ended, and it just felt like a ripoff.
But it wasn't, because it wasn't earned. It didn't make any freaking sense whatsoever because they barely mentioned it within the runtime, and then he has no reason to put it on.
Wait, at the end of that one, it was yellow? Like Sinestro, whoever found a yellow ring?
That was like their end-credit scene of the Green Lantern that everyone was just like, get me the hell out of here. No one stayed for it.
Dude, wait. I didn't stay for that, so I didn't know about it, dudes. Oh my God, I didn't like it that much. I left. Oh my gosh. I didn't know about that, Bill.
That's
Sorry.
Hilarious.
But I do
Sorry.
think, you know what? I'm totally fine. Like if I would say we should leave the door open for ourselves, but we don't necessarily have to get into it this movie. Because you're right, there are a ton of Green Lanterns. And the one thing that Green Lantern really can do is there's such a diverse number of Green Lanterns now, especially like just on Earth with Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. And, you know, I think there's enough that we can maybe focus on the Green Lanterns, the first movie, but leave the door open that there are other lanterns out there.
Oh, and I would also like to put in here, like I said, I don't care about canon at all. I don't care about 70 years of comic. I don't care at all. And I would just really love for us to try to think of a logical system for the ring and not think about what they do in the comics. Because frankly, in the comics, literally every problem you have, that stupid ring can solve. You fly and you talk to some aliens, the ring's translating for you. You try to bang a chick, the ring puts a condom on. I stop it with that. I'd love for it to be a tool that you have to actually use the whole time. There isn't any automatic force field for when people start shooting at you. There isn't anything automatic about it. You have to be on it every second of every day to not die.
Well, there's this scene in one of the Justice Leagues, I want to say, and I think it's Justice League War, where Green Lantern shows up and Batman's there, and Batman literally takes the ring off his finger because he's not paying enough attention, and that's because you need to be on top of it. So I love that idea. I love that as a weakness. Like, this guy has to constantly be focused to use the ring as a tool. And I love the idea that it doesn't just protect him completely randomly.
There's also something to be said about your greatest weapon has to be charged. Like, it does use a lot of power. And I feel like they did not tap into that at all in the other movie. And I feel like they don't use that a lot. It's like, if you have the greatest power on Earth, and I'm with you, Ed, I'm totally fine with rewriting some of the rules, because some of our favorite superhero movies, I mean, if they gave Toby natural web shooters, I'm fine with changing the ring a little bit. But
don't bring that up. Ron's going to smack his Skype.
Something that has to be...
I hate that. That part makes me so goddamn mad.
I love it. But I do think that there is something to, like, you have the greatest power in the world, and it is finite. You do have to charge it. We can set the rules for charging it. But I also, Ron, you just made my brain just tick, like, wow, the greatest thing, especially for our generation, the social media generation, I don't know if I could concentrate long enough to, like, do all the things that ring could do, like being distracted by something, being emotionally compromised. You know, if someone tells you something and you're just not in the right mind, and you kind of like you send a text and it's a little jibber jabber and doesn't make any sense. Imagine that, but you have a ring of power that can do anything, and you're not thinking clearly. So I think either one of those are like great foils for the ring.
I agree with that. I mean, I think that directorially, this movie needs to feel really subjective. Like, and this is maybe an argument for why it shouldn't be a big cast, because I feel like if you really want to dramatize what it would feel like to wear the Green Lantern ring, the movie itself needs to live in the point of view of one character, so that when you put the ring on and suddenly it's almost like that scene in Doctor Strange where the Ancient One pushes him into the other dimensions, right? It's like just wrapping your head around what it's like to wear this ring should be almost mind breaking. And the idea that, like, you just have some veteran Green Lanterns working a case kind of makes it hard to get that moment. One thing I want to ask, and I'm gonna shift a little bit now that we're talking about, like, okay, someone's gonna put on the ring. This is the experience they're gonna have. Who is wearing the ring? I think we need to sort of figure out who we want this movie to star. I'm gonna make 2 points. Number one, thinking about the franchise, I actually think Parallax is one of the greatest DC villains you could have for the DC universe, but not the Jeff Johns version of Parallax. I love the idea that Hal Jordan is this is this ultimate superhero who is compromised by a loss and goes off the deep end, claims all this power for himself, and for good reasons, right? I'm going to remake the universe in a way that works better, becomes your ultimate big bad. So I think there's value to keeping Hal Jordan in the story somehow. And then number two, Green Lantern, I guess I'll just ask the group, what is the story really about, like on a thematic level? Because I know, Ron, you said before, somebody learning to access their own willpower. That's a little vague, and I don't really know how that turns into good drama.
Well, I think it's because you already have willpower.
Okay.
I think actually Parallax, the Hal Jordan character, I think that is your big bad, and I don't think you reveal it until we're 3/4 of the way into the movie, that because I think not to borrow another Marvel thing, sorry, but I think the theme of this movie to me kind of is, what do you do with great power, great responsibility? Our biggest hero our biggest villain was the biggest hero who used the power in a way that he shouldn't have. So I think like that story as it is in the comics, like I kind of feel like that lays the groundwork and you work backwards from that story, like maybe it's the new Kyle, or hell, I'm fine even making up a whole new Green Lantern because there's so damn many. And
Billy, my only counter argument is that because that's such a famous story, thinking about it from the standpoint of treating it like a big reveal or a mystery, I don't think works. And I don't necessarily have an answer.
I don't feel like Green Lantern stories like outside of the bubble are that well known. I'm blanking because I'm trying to remember what movie I went. Oh, Mysterio. Yeah. Do you know how many people I was in the theater with for Spider-Man Far From Home that had no idea that Jake Gyllenhaal was going to turn out to be the villain of that movie? And I accidentally spoiled it for my mother-in-law because I was like, yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be a great villain. She's like, he's the bad guy? So yeah, I did that
in the movie next to my girlfriend, and she was like, what?
Okay,
so
but there's two things to that. Yes, I get that. They also did a ton of legwork in that movie of making him the hero and making him likable. So are we going to do the same thing with Hal Jordan? Or
absolutely.
But I was going to say, if it's just like the legend of Hal Jordan and he's either killed early in the movie or he's killed off screen before the movie starts, then I feel like that is such a cliche and predictable reveal. Like, he's still alive and he's the bad guy.
No, I say he's working the case, and he's been the case the whole time. I mean, is that too cliche too?
It's just tough because I'm
because
just
as soon
too
as you
in
brought him up, that's what I thought.
I know, maybe I'm just too in the stuff with this. Like, I just think the minute you have Hal Jordan in the movie and you also have a mystery of who the bad guy is, granted, the general audience won't know, but every one of your comic reading audience is going to call it out from the beginning. And that's the thing that just worries me. It just worries me.
The other thing I'm thinking about is I get that these movies have this ever escalating, size and weight, but Parallax almost killed the whole universe, and that's who our Green Lantern is going to have to defeat in the end. That's just weird to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think
that's the franchise. I think that's the whole franchise. That's like 3 movies. The third movie is he has to defeat Parallax. The first movie, he has to just figure out that Hal Jordan's the bad guy. He's not Parallax at that point.
Well, we're also trying to have a good ending of one movie. You know what I mean?
Right. That's my problem. And like, I sort of feel like there's an interesting story to be told, and I'm not saying this is the way we have to go, but there's an interesting story to be told where you literally cast somebody of the stature of like Tom Cruise as Hal Jordan. You tell one really good movie where actually he retires or gives it up at the end. He stays the good guy. And then in like Man of Steel 2 or some other sequel, Coast City actually gets destroyed like it did in the comics. And Hal Jordan comes back to it, having been retired as the good guy, to become become your Justice League bad guy. But I think the more you tease or use Parallax in your first Green Lantern movie, Ed's on it. Like that weakens the villain, and it also is a weird distraction from trying to tell a self-contained story in this movie.
But also one thing, and not to just be, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this. The framework we were talking about earlier in regards to being sort of a buddy cop thing, not trying to pitch story too quick, but I'm just thinking that what if, obviously, I think Ron's right that it might be a case, but I think what's interesting is you can have, if the Green Lantern are a big core of people who all know what they're doing and are all on it, but they're incapacitated in some way. Like they all got the Green Lantern coronavirus, or they all got messed up or blew up in a supernova, or trapped in an extra dimensional prison in space or something. And they're out there and they're messed up and you can't call them and there's no help. But one Green Lantern gets away, battered and bruised, whether it's Jon Stewart or whatever, one experienced Green Lantern gets away from whatever killed or destroyed or temporarily incapacitated all the rest of the Green Lanterns of the whole universe. And one Green Lantern gets to Earth. Kind of like, Abin Sur. But it's like he gets to Earth and he's like, this sucks. I got like one extra ring and I'm by myself. I'm not dying. But how am I going to beat up all my homies? And then so he finds somebody on Earth to share the power with, or is forced to share the power with that person, or gets incapacitated and the person picks up the power and proves themselves or something. And next thing you know, you got, I'm obsessed with 48 Hours, but you got a cop who knows what he's doing, having to drag some idiot along with him to solve the biggest case of all time, to save all the Green Lanterns. And he's got a rookie with him who sucks. You know what I mean? And so he has to train him up real quick. He has to deal with that person's idiocy and fear and disbelief. You know what I mean? Yep. And by the end of that movie, Jon Stewart has made Kyle Rayner, goofy punk comic book artist, into a badass who could stand with him and fight whatever has incapacitated every Green Lantern in the world or in the universe. And at the end of the movie, they all get free because this jerk from Earth who was drawing a week ago became a celestial superhero. I don't know. I think that's pretty good.
I dig that. Let me throw this twist at you.
That's pretty good.
No, I mean,
that's awesome.
Let me throw this twist at you. What if we take the thing that they're fighting one step further? What if number one, it isn't just somebody targeting the Green Lantern Corps, which feels kind of insular? And then what if number two, what if it's not like a murder mystery at all? What if it's a heist? Like, what can you make these guys like the FBI who are trying to sniff out like the greatest heist of all time? And when I say heist, I mean something like they're trying to steal a planet, or somebody is trying. I mean, do you use this movie to introduce a little bit of the New Gods mythology? Like somebody is trying to breach the source wall, and it's like you never have to really give the whole backstory, but it just becomes a thing that could then matriculate into other movies. What is that thing that becomes the case if it's not just murders are happening? I just want something that gives the scale of the Green Lanterns.
Well, I think that's a great idea, but I think because one of the biggest weaknesses in the first Green Lantern movie is that the bad guy is a weird mist.
Space clouds.
So you need, I think that's the other thing we need to talk about. And I think it goes with what you're talking about here, the person attacking the source. Who is the person attacking the source? Why does he have powers? Is he related to the Green Lantern? Is he not related to the Green Lantern? Is he, is it Darkseid? I mean, like, who are we dealing with here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the question. Who is our villain? Oh, no.
Oh, I'm getting a call.
Boys, you haven't been answering any of my texts. What's going on here? I told you had to work remotely. If you're working remotely, you need to be working.
Yeah, we're working.
If nobody responds to my text messages, I am going to make you come into the office and I'm confiscating all of your coronavirus masks. You are coming in, I'm going to spit on all of you.
Jeez. John Peters is out of control on this one.
I'm sorry, I'm a little intense. My divorce and the coronavirus has got me strung out.
Well, you're already divorced?
Hey, you don't ask me questions about my personal life.
That's
Shut
right,
up,
sorry.
bud. Jesus.
I know, you're getting us fired.
All right, boys, here's what I need. You're making a Green Lantern movie. Those idiots made a bomb the last time they did it, but they didn't have the Peter's magic. And here's what the Peter's magic is gonna be. I'm trying to use this movie to set up a crossover franchise. At the end of this movie, I want it to be established that we are in the same universe as the Xenomorphs in Alien and Star Trek. This is gonna bring all of the greatest sci-fi universes together in this movie. So you give me those breadcrumbs to follow to a delectable treat that I will negotiate and we will make happen. Gentlemen, keep working. Don't ignore my texts. Goodbye.
Great.
Jeez.
Okay.
Wallace.
Well, thank goodness that this is already in space.
So he wants us to set up that like all the greatest sci-fi franchises are in one shared universe connected by the Green Lanterns.
Okay, this is my pitch for
Easy.
that, and I think we can knock it right out.
Go for it.
It is,
Yeah.
We do that weird when we look at the history of the Green Lanterns. When whatever the old cop is teaching the young cop or whatever, or the old Green Lantern's teaching the young Green Lantern about the history, they say these are the things that we solved. So you see a bunch of xenomorphs scrabbling up a mountain, trying to eat a creature or whatever, and then a big green hand comes out of the sky. Or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Green Lantern stopping the xenomorphs, the whatever the hell else John Peters said. Green Lantern is contributing mightily to stopping those things happening on different planets throughout the universe.
Literally, a xenomorph is attacking the Vulcan home planet.
Okay. That
This is
just
like
happened.
sci-fi Mad Libs.
We got Vulcans. We got a xenomorph. Green Lantern stops them. And it can only be like literally a 5-second clip. Like it could be super short and just sort of like an homage. And if we're having enough comedy in here, we can pull that off without like it being totally weird too.
Is there something to like I was gonna say, is there something to like just doing it like Rise of Skywalker style, where maybe there's a big battle at the end and it's more of an Easter egg, like the Nostromo and the Enterprise kind of show up, and so we don't have to like overtly call it out, but it does leave you open for it. So if there's a big massive space battle at the end, it's like all the lanterns with all their rings, all these ships come in behind them. They've gathered the galaxy for something, and you can see the Enterprise. There's the Nostromo.
Well, like I said, a quick montage of all their exploits that have been so cool, like a big red sun about to eat a planet, and then some big green, all the dudes doing their green stuff, dragging people off the planet, and it just happens to be Vulcan or whatever, and you see the Enterprise. All this are just Easter eggs. I love what you guys are saying.
I mean, I think one thing that I think you just said, Billy, that's really interesting is the idea that the Green Lantern Corps itself is not really seen, is almost treated kind of mythically up until the climax of the third act. So you could almost use them almost like a Deus Ex Machina, but in a way that's really impactful, because the entire rest of the movie sets up like out there in the black depths of space, there exists this ultimate force for order and unity. But like, again, if you have a character who we're using as our subjective viewpoint, he or she never actually gets to experience that up until that last moment, which could be like really badass.
I love it.
So we'll keep this in mind of like, we're going to try to integrate with other sci-fi franchises, but like, let's go back to the question of who our main characters are. And Ed, I think you made a really strong pitch for like using Jon Stewart as the veteran Green Lantern and using Kyle Rayner, sort of the random kid, as I guess the audience point of view character.
I just think he is the one good thing about Kyle Rayner that I think gets lost on when we do Hal Jordan and stuff. Obviously, like I said, Top Gun is a great movie, and Hal Jordan being sort of a Top Gun sort of person, or Top Gun being a Hal Jordan type of person, no matter how you think about it, is really cool. But the audience is a bunch of over and underweight comic book fans, and to have the Green Lantern be one of them, truly one of them, down to him being a comic book artist, down to him being probably, barely making it, 15 roommates, and all of a sudden some black guy in green is coming in your room and just like, well, why do you live like this? What? And he's like, Jordan Peterson, pull your pants up, clean your room. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And I think the other
I mean?
interesting thing is if you treat the Green Lantern like Hal Jordan, you're basically retreading a lot of the same ground that Captain Marvel already did. I mean, her whole backstory is basically Hal Jordan's backstory, right down to being a fighter pilot. And so the idea of introducing a character like Kyle Rayner, who also could be a great stand-in for sort of like millennial or Gen Z angst, I think that's really interesting.
So let me a question before we get too far into it, because I'm still a little unclear. Is the tone of this like Training Day or Galaxy Quest, or split the difference?
Training the Galaxy.
I think it's pretty, it's like light. I think it's got to be a semi. It can't be lighthearted, but it's got to. I think it's more Galaxy Quest-ish. I think
you know what I think it needs, honestly, bro. And this has been absent the DC universe as well as the Green Lantern movies. There ain't no damn majesty to space.
Yes.
There's no majesty. It's not alien. It's not unknowable. It isn't dangerous. Space is just space. Space needs to be space again. Space needs to be like you're Sandra Bullock in Gravity, and you have a ring that makes it not deadly as long as you concentrate really hard. That's what being in space as a person should be.
I love that.
In this movie.
I think that's why this movie does need something. I don't want to say gritty because that's like such an overused word, but like the movie does need to have a sense of real danger to. I mean, I think 48 Hours is kind of an interesting comparison because it's a thriller and an action movie that is also a comedy, which is kind of what this needs to be.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm kind of seeing like, okay, so first off, we have to prove in a quick scene at the beginning, maybe how badass the Green Lanterns are, right? I don't know, it's just rescuing something that, like this is a big thing that they do in fantasy novels is the first scene is never them getting right into the story. It's usually like them doing something that is helping somebody out, right? And so it kind of proves how powerful and good they are. But then the tragedy happens, the big thing that Ed was talking about where you knock down all the Green Lanterns. So we've seen them be badasses, and for them all to get knocked out, you now know there's real danger. And I don't know.
But that, though, is an objective way to tell the story, not a subjective way. And I would just argue that, again, if we're talking about the majesty and danger and unknowableness of space, you almost want to start from the point of view of the Kyle Rayner character. And the inciting incident, the first 5 minutes of the movie is him encountering, the Green Lantern in some way. But I think the scope and majesty of the Green Lantern Corps is something that needs to be revealed to the audience in step with your Earthbound character.
Ooh, I like that idea. Okay. I can get with that.
I'm still hung up on like, who are we fighting? Who is the villain and what is the scheme?
Yeah.
Well, one thing I do like is one thing that you talked about what people would be expecting from a Green Lantern movie. They're definitely going to expect the scene where the alien comes down with a ring and has to give it up. But we're inverting that already by having Jon Stewart be hurt but not dead. And the giving of the ring is not like, oh, here I go. It's like some dork finds Jon Stewart and is like, hey, buddy, you okay? And then he picks up the ring and he touches it for a second and all kind of phantasmagorical crazy stuff that in his head starts happening. And he thinks he's going crazy and he drops it or something. You know what I mean? Like, let's invert the scene. You know what I'm saying?
And that's very Doctor Strange, too. That's very Doctor Strange, too. I love it.
So, I mean, you could go back to Kyle Rayner's first comic book appearances, and his whole thing was like, he was a loser. His girlfriend dumps him. He goes out and gets drunk, stumbles into an alley behind the bar, and there's Ganthet, the last of the Guardians of the Universe, who's like, well, I guess you're going to have to do because I'm about to die. Here, have this ring. And like, if instead of Ganthet, it's Jon Stewart, but otherwise it's sort of the same setup, right? Like Kyle Rayner is this guy whose head is in the clouds, who, is an artist, but isn't making good. And his girlfriend thinks he's going nowhere. And like all he's wanted to do is escape into these fictional realities that like he conjures, but he has no way to do it because he's a poor, broke nobody. And then next thing you know, he's out drinking and like this literal space cop encounters him as he's puking in the alley. That's an interesting way to start your movie.
And it's hilarious.
Well, it just shows that he's not a hero. We're talking about an arc, and I know that's Ron's favorite thing.
It is my favorite thing.
So you show somebody who has infinite potential as far as, I mean, frankly, I think each of us feels this way to a certain degree. You know, you have all this imagination, but cashing in on it is super difficult. And you have people in your life where like my mom calls me up to this day to tell me Tyler Perry needs assistance. You should just come back down here to Atlanta and be Tyler Perry's assistant. Maybe if you get him coffee good enough, you can, what the hell? You know what I mean? So it's like Kyle Rayner living that lifestyle of like, you haven't made it. Maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you suck. You know what I mean? Getting that from his girlfriend, getting that from his mom, getting that from society in general. And
you're never going to live some fantasy, powerful life. Why are you trying to live in that life? And then he gets to live the life, but he's got to figure out how to do it because it's really hard. And he discovers
that it sucks and it's hard. You know what I mean? Just like everything worth doing, it's really hard. Even his fantasy is super hard. And it's about a young person, especially a young man, growing into how hard achieving your dreams actually is, how hard having real responsibility is.
This definitely is like a millennial fairy tale.
Oh, 100%.
Yes.
I think that's
my God, yes. Yes. Like, this is the last Starfighter of our generation, really. You sit around drawing comic books all day, designing creatures and stuff, designing mechanisms, learning all these way things work and stuff, and never being able to apply it to anything. And then you get a magical way to do that. It's kind of sick.
It's overwhelming, I think. Yeah.
My question then becomes is Jon Stewart a boomer? And Jon Stewart is like, he's like the old grizzled guy who's ready to retire. And he has a dead partner named Hal Jordan from 30 years ago. And you know what I mean? And like, just can we thread... First of all, can we do the boomer versus millennial thing using Jon Stewart and cast like Denzel as Jon Stewart? And then can we also start to thread Hal Jordan into the backstory to as a reason why Jon Stewart is kind of rigid and cranky and crotchety and like so over this crazy world?
Well, and on top of that, he's got a way that he uses the ring that he keeps trying to teach to Kyle, and it's not working. Because Kyle's got to have his own way to do it because he's got to be his own person. Like that's a huge thing to do it.
Like, I think you just stumbled upon an arc, Noah.
2 by 2, boy.
Yeah. I just gathered all these penguins and lions, somehow got them to not eat each other.
Dude, have you ever seen those old drawings of Noah's Ark? It's always 2 male lions. It's like, what are y'all gonna do, Doc?
I really do think like the story can be like, you know, it all depends on how it's written, but it can be, like all these generational problems that we're having right now. And I do think like there is something to like, you know, Kyle's always like, is there a better way to do it? And that can get under the skin of Jon, who's like, you think it's so easy to do all of this. You know what I mean? Like, just imagine the conversations, the arguments you have with your parents, but now give it to 2 space cops.
Right. And as we were talking about earlier, the concept that millennials have such trouble concentrating. You know what I mean? They have such trouble staying on task, concentrating, caring about things that are 10 years hence because they're just too young to realize. You know what I mean? I remember when I was 20, thinking about 30, it might as well be 30,000. You know what I mean? It was a billion years away, you know? And I think that'd be interesting about, like, he can't quite concentrate. He doesn't have any stick-to-itiveness. He doesn't finish anything. I think Kyle Rayner having beautiful drawings that start out super sick and just trail off into nothingness. You know what I mean? 100 3-page strips, but never a 10-pager or a 20-pager. You know what I mean? To suggest this guy starts things, doesn't finish. This guy has no follow through and no concentration. And that's the main thing that keeps you alive with the Green Lantern ring. So many times he's going to almost die because he's not quite concentrated or he's not giving it his all. You know what I mean? As the way that a lot of people do. Millennials.
Yeah, we'll have some good scenes of him almost falling to his death.
Yeah, almost getting stabbed, almost getting blown up, almost, crashing into stuff.
Yeah.
being in space and suddenly his protective bubble is gone. And so let me ask this. I mean, I really like where this is going. I think that the idea of like this weird two-hander between kind of grizzled old Jon Stewart, who has a very rigid and architectural idea of like how to use the power, versus basically millennial slacker Kyle Rayner, who has to learn, how to pair his creativity with a real sense of willpower. That's all awesome. And so the question then becomes, who's the villain? What are they fighting? What are they going up against? And I'll just say this, I think that Sinestro and Parallax are like the only two villains that anybody thinks of with the Green Lantern, and they're the easy ones. And what do we do if it's not them?
I was also thinking, and he does not have to be a Red Lantern, but they did come up with a really great villain, Atrocitus, who is the leader of the Red Lanterns, does not need to be a Red Lantern for our purpose. But he, I think that's one where it could be just like, if you're just looking for kind of like a big menacing kind of, villain, like that's the thing. It's like, is the villain, is it one of those just like, do we monster of a week it because the actual real meat of the story is between Jon and Kyle?
Well, I just think it should be somebody with the power to mess up the equilibrium of the Green Lantern Corps. Maybe the power to keep them out of this system, and then something's coming in to destroy us or something, and they can't come through, and Jon Stewart just barely made it through before the wall came down, like Indiana Jones grabbing his hat. Yeah, Jon Stewart just got past the barrier to get into our system. Something to where he's isolated, and the rest of the Green Lanterns are messed up, I think is good.
How about the Anti-Monitor?
Oh, Ron, you went one bigger than Parallax in terms of bringing a DCU scale villain into this conversation. But
yeah,
I mean,
is that too big or?
I feel like it is, but let me address something that Ed said, and I'll explain why I think it might be too big. Okay. Ed, you're focused on how the Green Lanterns are being kept out of this sector and like the Corps can't come to the rescue. But earlier you were talking about like, bring the scale and the majesty and the mystery of space back into it. I think it's totally in bounds that like they're dealing with something that the other Green Lanterns just won't be able to come and help them because they all got other stuff going on. Like the idea that 7,200 beings can patrol the 92 billion light years worth of space is kind of nonsense to begin with. So instead of making space seem like a cul-de-sac that everybody can just come, and gather in. Why isn't it just that, like, look, for the Milky Way galaxy and literally like a couple hundred other galaxies, there's just me.
No, I agree with you very much. I was just going to say, if we could establish that it is something that is quite big for even a Green Lantern to handle, which would mean we have to establish how much a Green Lantern can do then. You know what I mean? Like what is the real scale? Can they do, as Kyle Rayner has done in Justice League comic books, put hands literally around the Earth by concentrating hard enough? Or is it something much smaller than that to where it's like, I, as a Green Lantern, am the equivalent of perhaps 3 fighter jets full of fuel and weapons at my apex. I am the equivalent of that. You know what I mean?
What if we borrowed a concept from Batman, which was what was the one where Bane broke his back? What was that? Nightfall, where the Lanterns are just kind of maybe they're swamped or they're just so spread out. They don't even realize that someone has set the chessboard up in such a way that, there's a gap here for them to get through. Like, what if we do someone like a Vandal Savage, who is a master kind of tactician? He may be someone that the Lanterns thought like, dude, we've battled him. He's gone. That was a long time ago. Because that guy is like the herps. He will just pop up when it is least convenient.
Do you think it's cosmic enough? That would be my question, to get into like the crazy space of it all.
I mean, on its face, no, but if we're making the rules, why can't we kind of, make him an amalgamation of, say, like, like an anti-monitor and a Vandal Savage and some of the things from, I don't know, whatever you want, and just kind of parse them together.
Like an amalgamation character almost. Like a Vandal Savage.
Yes, reiterator.
Well, no, Vandal Savage got the powers of Atrocitus or whatever the hell ridiculous comic book named character you were just talking about. He in his infinite lifetimes of travels went and got some stuff like that messes with Green Lanterns. I don't know.
Here's an idea. I mean, this character kind of combines Vandal Savage and Atrocitus. What if you use the villain Mongol with Warworld, who was originally a Superman villain, but he was the guy who blew up Coast City and turned Hal Jordan into Parallax. So he kind of became a Green Lantern villain in the 90s.
And you know what?
That's cool.
He's yellow.
Yellow. That was a big thing, yeah.
Oh, snap. That's cool.
And hard to beat in the first place.
Yeah, he beats up Superman on he's like Lobo. He just showed one of those characters that just inexplicably shows up and smacks the hell out of Superman.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's enough of a blank slate character that you can kind of mess with him, but he's basically Vandal Savage on a more interplanetary scale, right? Like he's a guy who's just hungry for power, who theoretically has an entire mini planet's worth of like cannon fodder people working for him. And I could see him manipulating, different alien civilizations into something that will benefit him.
Yeah, I like this idea.
I like Mongol a lot.
I love this idea.
Especially since he's like sort of a blank slate. Yeah, you're right. And he used to do like all types of stuff. I think he might be, if I'm not mistaken, he's the villain in that Alan Moore Superman story. The last, what do you get, the man who has everything?
What's Mongol's goal?
Well, so that's the thing in the comics.
What are we stopping him from doing?
In the comics, I mean, his goal is basically just he's a conqueror, he's a warlord. So he's kind of a blank slate that we can really imprint whatever we want onto.
I love it.
I mean,
Well, could it be, this is dumb, but could it be that he's trying to make us into a war world? Because if you think about it, if he takes planets and makes them into like Borg cubes to join a vast array, and he like assimilates the life on there or whatever. Maybe this is too much, but your bottom line is if he's coming down here to try to beat us up, and then the end result of him beating us up is we become a war world. We become assimilated into his space army of planet-sized ships that go to different systems and kill people or something like that. I just don't want it to be terraforming or anything, or like he comes down and expects to just make a throne out of Starbuckses and sit and lord over us. I mean, that's stupid. Like nobody wants to do that. Like nobody in the galaxy wants to do that.
So,
and I don't think he wants to eat planets either.
No, but
what if he's stealing the Green Lantern's power source?
That's interesting. I mean,
and the power source is on Earth right now. So
are we going to have Oa though? That's the thing. We got to determine how much this Green Lantern lore are we going to have? Are we going to have Oa? Are we going to have those blue dudes? I vote no and no. But I know that might be harsh, and I don't want to be,
I vote no as well. I think it makes it too complicated, and we're trying to make a pretty, I don't want to say straightforward movie, but like relatively relatable and not deep on other levels than, wow, look at this lore type of thing.
I agree. I think at most it's like, if Kyle's like, why can't we just da-da-da? And Jon Stewart's like, because the council won't allow it. And that's as much backstory as you get about it. You just know there's some sort of parliament, Here's
an interesting idea. If we lean into the idea that there is, so rather than just the guardians of Oa being like the arbiters of everything, what if there really is like an intergalactic United Nations that the Green Lanterns are kind of beholden to? Maybe Mongol's whole thing. Okay, this is kind of crazy. I don't know why. I just have the idea of stealing a planet just feels so Green Lantern to me, and is also just bizarre enough that I think could be funny. Like, what if Warworld is basically a Dyson sphere around a neutron star? Basically, long story short, like we can get into the physics of this, but Mangal is basically trying to steal planets to create his own solar system so he can have a seat at the table of like the intergalactic UN. Right? Like Mangal has Warworld, which is a Dyson sphere built around a black hole or something, and he's coming into different star systems, literally trying to rip planets out of their orbits so that he has just to set himself up as like a little mini dictator and being like, I'm going to be able to, like, it's just leverage, right? It's just leverage for him to become a power in the galaxy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea, especially if you show how bad things are for anybody who's living on his planet, basically, or living in his grip. So then the thing you're freeing is people who are in the grips of tyranny. And that's always a good thing.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like, it doesn't have to be... I'm not thinking that the 2 Green Lanterns are going to come in and, like, liberate, you know, an entire planet's worth of people, but it's almost like they need to prevent either the first planet heist that Warworld is going to you know, do, or like the second or the third. Like there's already, you know, Warworld already has one moon and he's going to try to make some other planet his other moon, you know, something like that.
This is so great. One of my favorite things that they do in Bad Boys is they always have some, what do they call them? The ones that are sort of like part of the criminal group, but they snitch.
The rats?
Informants.
They have informants.
That was real Italian.
Bill's using the prison lingo. I love it.
I know. That was so Italian.
The dead rats. But the informants. So they get an informant who tells them, you guys, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. He wants to steal a planet so that he can join the council or whatever. And look, normally I wouldn't even say anything, but this is too, I had to come to you guys or whatever. And then they try to stop him. That's when he gets beat up, and then they have to go train Kyle to beat him.
I mean,
like that's the short version.
One of the things that I really like about that is this idea, again, if Kyle Rayner is this real head in the clouds guy, there's a cool sort of 1-2 punch of like, number one, the universe is opened up to him and it's glorious and magnificent. But then once he's there, it's full of like a bunch of bureaucratic, weird nonsense, like weird political power plays and stuff. You know, there's that's interesting to me.
Yeah. And I think it's his creativity, not just with the ring, but seeing things from a whole new vantage point. That's kind of, it ties into everything. I really like that a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So I think there's something to this. I think, you know, we basically have an older Jon Stewart who's been Green Lantern for 20, 25 years. He gets caught up in a weird conspiracy where he gets beat up and he's got nobody to turn to. He ends up on Earth and he encounters sort of head in the clouds, millennial dreamer artist Kyle Rayner. And so Kyle Rayner needs to learn how to pair his creativity with a sense of duty and responsibility and commitment. But by the same token, he's not going to be trapped in sort of the rigidness of Jon Stewart's thinking. And ultimately, they're trying to stop Mangal and his Warworld from stealing planets in a weird political play to gain power in the galaxy. So I think there's something to that. I think there's a lot of juicy thematic stuff we could do. The question now is, who are these people? So we have a 30-something, 25 to 35, call him Kyle Rayner. We've got an older, I don't know how old, Jon Stewart. And then we got to decide, who's the female lead going to be and how does she fit into all this? And then, of course, who's going to be Mangal, which is just a really scenery-chewing part.
Well, I would just like to say, if there is a lady character in there, we need to serve our audience and have her just be so moded and so angry that Kyle Rayner is cool at the end of it. She's just like, or she tries to come up to him like, wow, that suit looks cool. You're cool. He's like, beat it, bitch. I got a space girlfriend now. You know what I mean? Like, if
he's got a girlfriend with like tentacles and shit.
He puts his arm around a Twi'lek and flies away from her. You know what I mean? You dare diss me while I was drinking Mountain Dew on the couch? You don't deserve it. You weren't there when I was shooting jump shots in the gym.
Wait, what if the female lead is Starfire, Princess Coriander from the planet Tamaran, like, is just part of this whole thing. Maybe even the planet Tamaran is the one that like Mangal is targeting. But I'm just trying to think you could just
I love it.
Yeah, drop in another
cool.
DC character.
And she joins the
I
fight.
think that's really cool, dude.
She joins
because
the
she's
fight.
got her own powers and stuff, and then maybe we can tamp them down just a little bit. But like, she's got her own powers, but she's not. Dude, she's a space princess that's hot and has powers and wants to fight Mongol to save her people, but she's too weak. And the Green Lantern Corps, Jon Stewart comes to try to help her out, but gets smacked down to earth, and has to lick his wounds. And that's kind of interesting, dude.
Oh, beautiful. And now we got Starfire in this movie. This is dope.
And dude, his girlfriend, dude, I'm telling you, I'm sorry. I'm being a jerk, but I'm being a little funny. But dude, some girl it's like Wanted, which is problematic as hell. But the girl who disses you at the beginning, seeing your 8-foot tall, beautiful space girlfriend at the end, come on, man. That's an emotional beat.
One thing I have to say, Kyle Rayner's girlfriend is the original woman in the fridge. So do we want to do her like that?
No, she's not going to get murdered. She's just going to get angry. She's just getting jealous, not dismembered.
Do we want to villainize her? I'm just saying, do we want to
dark.
villainize her and do this to her? That's all I'm saying.
It doesn't even have to be that girlfriend, because that girlfriend was a really good woman to him, and I think he was with her for a while, and they tried to make a big emotional moment out of it. I'm just thinking just a nice, funny, you were a loser, look at me now scene at the end. That's all I'm saying. Like the loser on the couch drinking Mountain Dew becoming a superhero and having people from his past look at him now and be like, you're really cool. It's like, I was cool all along, you bums. He flies off. I'm sorry, I love it.
The loser with potential.
That's dream fulfillment. I'm telling you, we're going to have nerds clapping hard at that part, and we do
Absolutely.
it right.
Okay, so I'll buy that. So Kyle Rayner, Starfire, Jon Stewart, Mangal. Who do we like for these roles?
Obviously.
Oh, God.
Do
Tom
not
Holland.
Stop it. Stop it.
I'm actually kidding on that one. I don't really think he would be good for this one.
I had two. One for Jon Stewart, I think might be a good choice, is Blair Underwood. I kind of feel like he's just about the right age. He kind of looks like what I would think the comic book version looks like. And then kind of an outside the box choice for Kyle, but I was trying to think like who kind of has that kind of smoldering look, but also could potentially, be kind of a lovable loser. But I was thinking maybe Ben Barnes. He was Billy Russo in The Punisher on Netflix. He was Prince Caspian in the Narnia movies. I think he could make a decent Kyle.
Interesting.
It's interesting.
Jinx, you owe each other space coke.
But don't actually give it to each other because you shouldn't leave your house.
So I'll say,
I'm thinking John, somebody funny.
I'm thinking
John Mulaney.
John Mulaney is like 40.
Yeah, that's
No,
true.
he
He's
is too
good,
old.
but he's like 40.
He's too old.
I think also Kyle Rayner should be a little bit schlubby. I mean, he should be a little bit like, he doesn't have to be like a leading man, good looks type of guy. And I'm thinking like Jay Baruchel, 10 years ago.
I think that genre of person is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, also Kyle Rayner, I think in the comics was part Latino, which could also be a nice piece of casting here.
Timothy Chalamet.
Oh, yeah. All day long, Timothy Chalamet. I mean, Timothy Chalamet actually looks exactly like comic book Kyle Rayner, but I don't know. I don't know if we want to give him all the parts in Hollywood.
Well, you know who I really do like, honestly, for real? I like Ansel Elgort, but he's just too handsome. You know what I mean? The guy who played Baby in Baby Driver or whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that
he's
would
got
work.
a quality. He's got a quality, and if we could like bum him up, I think he could be really cool as somebody who cleans up well.
I like that choice.
Yeah, I like that choice a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's I don't have a better choice at the moment. Can he? All I'm wondering is like, can he do sort of befuddled and doe-eyed? You know what I mean? Sort of like, oh my God, what's happening? If he can pull that off, then I think he can pull off the role.
Yeah, but also I think one key part, if we're gonna do a real millennial, I guarantee you, if you showed a real actual millennial a spaceship, the first thing they would do is go, this doesn't look as good as the one in such and such. I don't know. This is dumb. Like, you would have to work so hard to impress them and to make them see the majesty of anything because they don't have any values. I'm sorry, you millennials suck. No, I'm just joking. But you know what I mean? Like, I think this concept that young people are awed at everything, I wish they were. I wish young people these days could even feel awe at anything besides Drake or whatever the hell. You know what I mean? I wish they could feel awe. I think it's one of those things where if we're casting it honestly, yeah, towards when things really get going, yes, they'll have that feeling of awe. But like the disbelief of the millennial, I think he could do that part. I don't know if he could do the awe part. I haven't seen it before.
Well, let's talk about Jon Stewart. Let's talk about, I'll just make this point about Jon Stewart. I like the Blair Underwood choice. I wonder if he's almost too small. And what I mean by that is I feel like this is a role that could really be great for a little bit of an older actor. And like, this is how you could bring in a Robert Redford, like big name to just play this one role in this one movie. And then you hand it off to the new character and he doesn't have to be in it anymore. And so I would almost just shoot higher for like who is going to play our Jon Stewart character.
I don't know. Do you want to write off Jon Stewart for good though? Like, I feel like that's a character that even though he's towards the end and grizzled, you don't want to just send him off at the end. I mean, hell, then you find yourself in a Men in Black 2 situation where you got to whack ass figure out how to get him back. And that's half the movie is, just trying to get back your Tommy Lee Jones, and then you can start the story. So I don't disagree though with like the thought of like, really shooting high for, you'd mentioned Denzel earlier, and that could be cool.
I mean, Denzel, even I won't say Will Smith, but if Will Smith could act better and was willing to shave his mustache, that level of star where it's just like they're trying to get back on the horse type of star, I'd love that. And frankly, anything from 40s to 60s, as far as his age, is going to seem ancient to a millennial.
Oh, 100%.
What if it's okay? I guess it can't be Idris Elba, but why couldn't it be?
I mean, it could be. I'll do you one better, Ed. Wesley Snipes. Go back to the actual 48 hours.
Whoa. Wait a minute. Is he in 48 hours?
I thought it was Eddie Murphy.
What am I thinking of?
Not every black man is all the same, Bill.
You guys caught me.
Well, hey, don't bet on him. He's Italian.
I'm honestly thinking of White Men Can't Jump.
Oh snap! But you know what? That is the original buddy movie, like some teach a white dude the ropes type of movie. That's fun, dude. Yeah, why not Eddie Murphy?
You know what? Why not Eddie Murphy?
Oh man, because all of a sudden he can complete the 48-hour circle. Now it's Eddie Murphy playing the Nick Nolte part,
and Nick Nolte voices Mongol.
I just don't buy for one single second that Eddie Murphy has any architectural experience whatsoever. I just would be like, nope, not buying it. Sorry.
I mean, maybe we just go Denzel.
Well, I think we got a nice genre of guy between Denzel and.
I think if you're going to do it, you do Idris if you want the like. I just don't think Denzel is the right way to go. I think you're right. We do
Idris. I think we go Idris.
Yeah, there's a level. It's like Idris getting a Denzel part for once because I love Idris Elba. Lord knows I do, but he ain't had a Denzel part since God was a boy, if ever. It ain't never happened. Never. Oh, the apocalypse stops here. Stop. This is not the King Kong speech from Training Day, bro. You know what I mean? So we could definitely give him some of that in this movie.
Yeah, okay. I'm down with that. So now Starfire and Mangal. Do we have thoughts on Starfire and Mangal?
Is it too much of a cliche to say like you have Andy Serkis do your Mongol and you have him do the mocap for it? He has such like a husky voice that I hear like Snoke type of voice for Mongol.
I don't have a problem with that.
I think that's amazing. I think that's the answer. I also think that he could bring a physicality to it that you would buy in the mocap. just because that's what he does. He's the best.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with my own
also
point.
leave some space for like somebody like, I know you're addicted to Tom Hardy, Bill, but like this sounds like a 3-week job for Tom Hardy. He has Andy Serkis to jump around in the suit or whatever, mocap guys. He could just sit down like Josh Brolin and do the lines and play with voices and accents and intonations and stuff. You could have a pretty great actor do the Josh Brolin of it.
I feel like Andy Serkis is now at a point where he's like, if you're going to hire me, I'm not just mocapping for someone else's voice. You either hire me or you don't. I feel like that's where he's gotten.
Yeah, I know, but Mongo's not a chimp. Mongol is an actor. So I'm just saying, I'd much rather we look at Mongol as Thanos than Mongol as a chimp or Gollum.
Wow. Are you discounting every other role that Andy Serkis has ever had?
Okay, he played a chimp. He played Gollum. Did he play Snoke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, he played Snoke. He played what else? I think it's more Thanos. Like DC needs a Thanos, an actor whose face can be used to base the stuff on, whatever. Like I said, that's just my opinion. I think, and plus Andy Serkis is director now. Andy Serkis is going to be getting.
But that's like saying Ed Norton is a director now. Like it's not like we're never going to get Ed Norton in a movie again.
Well, okay. I don't think Venom 2 is going to bomb as hard as Motherless Brooklyn.
To be fair, Andy Serkis is also playing Alfred, so there's that to think about.
Oh, that's right. All right. Well, I can live with Tom Hardy.
Well, just somebody like that, like a Shakespearean actor doing the mocap.
Tom Hardy would definitely bring an interesting voice to the proceedings.
And a bunch of
I would think a Tom Hardy.
From? Is he Welsh? Is he Californian?
Well, I would say like a Tom Hardy. I know a lot of people didn't see the movie, but like if he channels a performance that's similar to like I can't remember the name, but it was from Star Trek Nemesis, where it turned out he was Picard's clone, but he was kind of like this regal Romulan type figure. I could definitely see that.
The only curveball I'll throw here is Forrest Whitaker doing a version of his Last King of Scotland character. Put him in the mocap.
Huh.
Just because Mongol is supposed to be like this self-aggrandizing warlord figure, and that's the part. Yeah, I mean that's the part that comes to mind is Forrest Whitaker in Last King of Scotland.
But yeah, I think somewhere between Forrest Whitaker and Tom Hardy, as far as somebody who can actually do the mocap, do the voice, give it some gravitas, do the whole Alas Poor Yorick holding a planet instead of a skull. Yeah, that brand of actor, that works for me.
Okay, and so finally, who is an actress of stature and presence and power who we can light their hair on fire and call them Starfire?
Well, let's go through what's required. Obviously, she needs to at least be able to be forced perspective shot as a big woman. Because Starfire is big. If we're going to do it, let's do it. Let's have Starfire look at the top of Kyle Rayner's head.
Oh, 100%.
So let's kind of commit to doing that. Because obviously we need to sell these are alien races. So having like a super large woman who's also super curvy and sexy. I mean, I could go through my internet search history for big, beautiful women and come up with some
Co-produced by Pornhub.
How about maybe she's too old. Never mind.
Well, say it anyway. It might spur something.
Cookie Lion, and I don't think she's tall enough either. I just like
Taraji Henson. Yeah, she's a bit old and a bit small, but yeah, she's got attitude though.
Yeah, that's the attitude I want. That's like a badass.
I straight up just Googled large women. This is not working like I thought it was.
You should have said large actresses.
You're just very distracted at the moment.
What about Aisha Tyler? So Aisha Tyler is 6 feet tall. She's the woman who plays the voice of Lana on Archer, but she's also just like beautiful and very funny. Her whole background is in comedy.
She was on that arc of Friends when she dated Ross and Joey. And I remember she was like almost the same height as David Schwimmer, who is a tree trunk. So yeah, That's an interesting choice. I like that choice. She is beautiful too.
The other thing to take into consideration here is like theoretically you could matriculate this actress into another franchise with the Titans or the Teen Titans if you want to do that. If this is going to become a movie in like an extended DC universe, so the question becomes like,
the question is,
yeah,
she's also almost 50 years old.
That's what I was going to say. Go younger.
What about Naomi Ackel, who played Jana in Rise of Skywalker? She's kind of a new talent. She's also got a nice presence. She could be someone that, even if it's not a main feature for her in this movie, you know, she's proved herself that she can hold her own in a big franchise and could possibly lead another one.
I'll just throw this out there too. This came up in one of our season 1 episodes, but maybe it's a better fit here. Taylor Swift is 5'11" and has some degree of ability with comedy and definitely brings in an audience that would be beneficial to the movie.
I just worry if you put Taylor Swift in there, no matter how great your movie is, I mean, they're seeing it with Batman now, where it's just like, it doesn't matter how good that Batman movie is going to be. It's just going to be the Twilight Vampire Batman kid. So I think Taylor Swift, it does have a lot of talent. I think her name recognition would hurt this project.
That's fair.
I like Naomi Ackie. I mean, she's only 5'6", but we'll just have to use some good camera work to make her look
Good
taller.
God, if they can make Tom Cruise look eye level with an adult mammal, I think that we can figure out a way to make any actress that we like.
We'll just use it all Hobbit style.
She's a young talent, rising star. I'd say grab her while, you still can at a reasonable price.
I like that idea.
Okay. Well, I think we've cast the major parts, or at least cast as Ed likes to say, the genre of person. Last question. Who's our director? Who's making this thing?
That is a hard one.
I think you need somebody who, number one, understands a sense of scale, and number two, could deliver kind of the trippy visuals that would go with, the Green Lantern ring really opening your mind in that sort of metaphysical way.
We have been talking Doctor Strange, and Scott Derrickson now has a hole in his schedule, so we could go one for one.
I think he might have filled that hole up, but I would be down for Scott Derrickson. I would also be down for Michel Gondry, who directed Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Ooh.
He seems to really kind of understand how to put you in a different reality and have that reality have a total verisimilitude. Like when Jim Carrey was having a dream about himself being a child and he was in a giant kitchen because everything looks so big when you're a kid. I never doubted that kitchen for a minute. And I think if he applies that sort of mind to outer space, or we could get the guy from Gravity too, because he really made space look pretty dangerous.
I mean,
Inarritu?
Alfonso Cuarón, I think it was, that did Gravity.
Oh, Cuarón, yes.
Cuarón's actually a great choice. The other one that I would throw in there would be similar along the lines of Michel Gondry, but Spike Jonze. Oh. Spike Jonze directed Where the Wild Things Are and the movie Her. And I just think the thing that he does is he can manage to strike a balance between like big, awesome, immersive visuals, but also that very subjective, very like place you in the mind of a character style of directing. And I think that would work wonders for a movie like this.
That's a cool choice. I like that choice.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, guys, we have achieved Reboot. Improbably over Skype, because we're quarantined from the coronavirus, we have our Reboot. So we have got Kyle Rayner as the young millennial. We've got Jon Stewart as the grizzled old veteran Green Lantern. We've got Mangal pulling a planet heist. We've got Spike Jonze directing. We've got a big, dangerous, scary version of outer space. And we've got a story that teaches our young millennial that creativity needs to be paired with willpower in order to achieve success. I think this is pretty good, guys.
I think that's great.
I like it.
Yeah, willpower and discipline.
So as much as this is not the ideal situation, we would like to get back into the corner office sooner than later. But thank you guys for joining us for the season premiere of Reboot It, Green Lantern. How are you guys feeling about season 2 as we ramp up here?
I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty sure at some point I'm going to fight all of you on some stuff that I really care about. But it didn't happen this time, so maybe it won't happen the next time. We'll see.
So wait a minute. You're saying you're gonna Billy? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I think I might be the Billy on this one this season. I
I'm
get the
just
feeling there's some things I care
if
about.
the Billy
that you-
is being the calm, level-headed person that is not going to let Ed push people's buttons for amusement, then I take that as a compliment.
Thank you.
I hope you all become the Billy
guess
for all the episodes.
I might be that guy. No, I'm not going to be calm. I guarantee. Well, no, we'll see. You never know.
Excellent. Well, if you want to see, you have got to subscribe. We are back with new episodes. We have got some amazing franchises this season. We are super excited. And who knows how long the Skype version is going to last. We might be back in the studio very soon. We might be doing this for a whole slew of episodes. Only way to know is if you subscribe, come back, check out the channel, and in the meantime, go back to season 1 and tell us what your favorites are. The comments are open below, and we'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, I'm producer Bill, Billy Business from Hot Takes with Billy Business, Ed Greer from Screen Junkies Universe and Nerd Goat, and from Nerd Goat, Ron Swallow. Everybody, live long and prosper.